and that we want to spend more time in prayer, which means that we're going to spend less time talking about it. But I do want to take a few moments to talk about the incredible promise that we have in prayer. And it can't be stated any more fully or forcefully than what we find in the book of 1 John chapter 5. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we have asked of him. Isn't that a wonderful, wonderful promise? Whatever we ask, he hears us. And we know that if he hears us, we have what we've asked of him. Isn't it a wonderful sense of confidence to know that whatever we ask, God is willing and ready to provide? And, anytime you make a request, you can make that request with confidence if you know in advance that the answer is yes. Back in September of 2012, I got down on one knee and I asked a very important question. I asked that question of Nikki, and you might guess what that question was. I was not the least bit frightened in asking that question. I wasn't the least bit afraid. I was confident in asking that question because I had every indication that when I asked that question, the answer would be yes. Because of little things that she would drop, like, ask it already! No, she didn't do that. I'm exaggerating, okay? But I had every confidence that the answer was going to be yes. And so as I got down on that one knee and I said, will you marry me? I had absolute confidence. Whatever I asked, that would be the answer. And that's what we have of God. God is assuring us in advance. Ask whatever you will, and it will be done for you. But in this passage, there is a condition. It says, if we ask anything according to his will. And there's part of me, I'll just have to be honest, there's part of me that says, oh, I wish that condition weren't there. Ask anything you want as long as it's according to his will. I know this is an unspiritual part of me, but there's part of me that just kind of wishes that God were more like a genie in a bottle. That I could just go and, rub that bottle and the genie would appear and say, you have 3 wishes. And I could say, okay, I want incredible wealth, I want striking good looks, and I want 3 more wishes, dude. There's part of me that wishes that that's what God was like, but God says, no, if you ask anything according to my will. And that gets me feeling a little less confident because it raises a question, well, when I'm praying, am I praying according to his will? And what exactly does that mean? And I can think of several things that might mean, praying according to God's will. Maybe it's like Henry Ford and the Model T. If you know your history, you know that Henry Ford once said that you can have any color Model T you want as long as it's black. And that was indeed the case. And so you would say, well, if you ask for any color of Model T that you want, according to Mr. Ford's will, then you can have it. Well, Mr. Ford's will was that all Model Ts shall be black. Now, I have a friend who was a lifelong engineer at Ford Motor Company, and he explained that wasn't Henry Ford being bullheaded. It was black paint was the paint that dried the fastest. So for the assembly line of the day, that's what made the most sense. But still, it was Mr. Ford's will that all Model Ts be black. And so you could ask for any color you wanted, but you would have to hit on that one color as your favorite in order to have your request fulfilled. Is that what it is to pray with God? Does God already have everything prefigured out? Does he have everything already set out and lined out step by step, point by point? And when we pray, it's simply an exercise in us trying to make sure that we ask for what God has already decided is going to take place. Is that what it means to pray according to God's will? I hope not. I hope there's a little bit more to it than that. Or could it be that it's like when I was a grade school kid going into Slim's Market. Now, just down the street from our school was this little hole-in-the-wall mini grocery store called Slim's Market. It was run by a guy named Slim. And the pickings were kind of slim at Slim's Market. He had candy, but to get the candy, you had to go to the counter and ask for what you wanted, and then Slim would tell you whether he had it or not. And so you would go up to the counter and say, I'd like some strawberry Twizzlers. And Slim would say, ain't got none. And it's, well, how about some hot cinnamon jawbreakers? And Slim would say, ain't got none. And he's, well, what about some red licorice? He said, well, we got some of that, so we'll give it to you. So is that what it means to pray according to God's will? Is it, just God has certain things in stock and certain things that aren't in stock, and if you happen to ask for what he has in stock, then you get it. And, there may be something to that. I think there are times, in my life at least, when I have in my prayers in effect said, Lord, I would like something foolish that will make me happy for a little while, but ultimately that will bring me heartache in the long run. And God says, ain't got none. There are times when God does not answer my prayers because he knows that ultimately that's not going to do me any good or anyone else any good, and he just doesn't have that kind of thing in stock. That may be part of the answer. Or maybe this condition, if we pray for anything according to God's will, maybe it's like the electric train that I wanted, again, when I was in grade school. I wanted a Lionel electric train so bad I could taste it. And so I began saving my allowance money, and I saved it, and I saved it, and I saved it, and finally I had enough money to buy the cheapest electric train in the Sears Roebuck catalog, which was $19.95. There wasn't much to that train, just a couple of cars and a few sections of track. But I finally saved up my $20, and I went to my mom and I said, Mom, you have to take me to Sears so I can buy an electric train. And my mom said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's my money, Mom, and I can't drive, and I can spend my money on whatever I want to. And yeah, I threw a little fit, but Mom didn't relent. She would not take me. I didn't understand until later that the time I was asking happened to be late November. And there was a date coming up in December that Mom had in her mind. And on that particular date in December, a particular morning, I remember, I got up, and under this green tree, I opened the most incredible electric train set you ever saw in your life, way beyond my ability to afford it. And then I understand why Mom had said no to my request. And maybe that's what it is, and I think in times indeed that is what it is. When we say if we pray for anything according to God's will, we know that we received it. I think there are times that God does say no to our little request because he knows that he is already at work on something far bigger than we could possibly imagine, much less ask for. I guess all of those metaphors may help us understand a little bit more what it means to pray according to God's will. But ultimately, here's what I think that points to. And that is that prayer is a relationship. Prayer is part of a loving, intimate relationship with God. Now, if we see our relationship with God simply as a matter, the genie in the bottle thing, if we see our relationship with God simply as, well, whenever I need something, I ask him and then he gives it to me. Think about your relationships. Have you ever had a relationship with someone that it became obvious after a while that the only reason they were your friend was just for what they could get out of you? We don't call that friendship, do we? We call that being used. And we resent it. Why wouldn't God resent it if that's the only terms in which we see our relationship with him? It's like, hey, God, you just go over there. And when I need something, I'll come and ask it, and doggone it, you better give it to me, or I'm out of here. Why wouldn't that qualify as God being used as well? Because you see, there's a whole lot more to a relationship than just asking for stuff and getting it. There's a lot of give and take and commitment. And there's a lot of time spent together and shared goals and shared life and shared striving together. One of my closest friends is a guy named Jeff. Jeff and I have been through a lot together. He means a great deal to me, and I'm confident that I mean a great deal to him. And Jeff told me one time, he said, Mark, you're one of the best friends I have on earth. Just whatever you need, let me know, and I'll do it. And he meant it. And not long after he said that, I came into a circumstance in my life. My mom had Alzheimer's disease, and it became apparent that she could no longer live by herself in her own house. And we had to make a move with her. Unfortunately, she was in Arkansas, and where we needed to move her was close to my sister in Houston, Texas, and my sister didn't have the ability to pull that off, and I didn't really have the ability to pull that off by myself either. I went to my friend Jeff. I said, Jeff, we've just suddenly realized that my mom is in danger by herself. We need to move her. We need to move her quickly. Jeff said, I'm there. My friend Jeff went into his work and said, I'm taking a week off. And he did. He took a week's vacation on a moment's notice, got in the car with me, and we drove from Michigan to Arkansas, and we packed up my mom, and we moved her and her stuff to Houston, and then drove back to Michigan. That's what friends do. That's what people who love each other do for one another. And I'm so thankful for that. You see, that's really, that points to what prayer is all about. When God says, if you have a relationship with me, if you and I are close, if you and I have a body of shared experiences, if we have grown together and lived together and talked with one another and shared dreams and ideas back and forth with one another, then you just ask whatever you want, and I'm there for you. I'm there for you. Ask whatever you want, and I will do it. Which is why Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane makes sense when he shares so openly with his Father and says, Father, here's what I want. I don't want pain any more than any other human being wants pain. And I don't want to die any more than any other human being wants to die. But Father, you and I are one. And I trust you. Consider the words of Jesus when he makes that promise to us in John 15. He says, if you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be given to you. Again, you see there's that relationship. If we have a shared life together, if my words have become your words, if you have lived so long with me that you've begun to think like me and you understand who I am and what motivates me, you ask whatever you want, and it will be given. What a wonderful promise. And it's that promise that we call on today as we pray for God's continued guidance during this time of transition, praying that God will provide exactly what this congregation needs. And so we're going to continue in those prayers at this time.